the congressional races, and we did touch a little bit on Rashida Tlaib and the fact that she's going to be the first Muslim woman who's going to be in Congress. That has made headlines around the country for her. And the thing that crossed my mind that I had forgotten about was when Donald Trump came here in 2016 and spoke to the Detroit Economic Club and gave his economic platform. She was one of the women who stood up and interrupted his speech.
I was in the room and I said, hey,
and
that's Rashida.
That's Rashida. And I think it's going to be very interesting to have that kind of dynamic now in Trump's Washington going into Congress. What's your thought on that?
Rashida is one of the strongest individuals I know. She is a very forceful activist and legislator. I think this is a different brand of congressperson than we're used to here in the state of Michigan, and she will surprise us over and over with the way that she does things. But here's the thing that I think always has defined her, and it will probably define her even more in Congress. This is somebody who is really, really close to the people she represents. Constituent service has always been the main focus of her state Senate office, or her state rep office, and the work that she did in between then and now. And so I think this is somebody who will spend more time in Detroit than in Washington and make that sort of count for the people who live in that district. I think that's one of the things that convinced people to vote for her.
Is that slightly detrimental, though, Nolan, that don't you have to be in Washington a little bit more to get into the Washington machine or figure out how it all works?
The last thing you want to do is get into the Washington machine. You don't want to
clean it up.
You don't want to end up like folks go down there and they never come back. You wouldn't know Debbie Stabenow was running for Senate because we haven't seen her in this state, and I don't know how long. You want them to come back. I'm not a big fan of Rashida's. I hope she does well because Michigan needs representation. I'm not sure how well she's going to play with others in terms of the delegation, which gets together, I think, very effectively, or had been, in pushing Michigan issues and Michigan interests, Michigan economic interests. I think it's still a step up probably from what was there.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the 11th, which has been traditionally a Republican-held seat. Dave Trott retiring. Now people are saying that this could be a toss-up race. And you have Lena Epstein and Haley Stevens, a classic, what people across the country are saying, a Trump versus Obama really race here. How would you characterize it, Nolan?
I didn't look at the total vote for the primary, whether Democrats turned out more than that district or Republicans. I know in the Bishop district, Republicans turned out somewhat more than Democrats, which tells me that race is probably not going to be the toss-up people think. This one could be because the demographics of that district have changed over the last decade. I think she's going to get a lot of help. Lena Epstein's going to get a lot of help, a lot of money to try to keep that district Republican, and I think probably a lot of money is going to flood in on the other side. This is going to be a very, very well-funded race. It'll be close.
Yeah.
And again, the district snaking from Livonia all the way to Troy on this one. Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think we're going to be able to see?
Aren't all that disconnected. I mean, they're demographically those communities, are
they're
contiguous
in the literal sense, but not in any other sense. I mean, again, this is a function of the way that the Republicans tried to maximize their advantage. When they drew the maps after the 2010 census, there's nothing new about that, although I will say that this was the most extreme iteration of that we've seen in Michigan history. But one of the dangers of doing that, of course, is that people move. They move in and out of a district over time, and this is the 8th year
it usually cures itself.
Yeah, it could go Democratic.
Let me ask you this: what do you think are the biggest issues that are going to be at play for the 11th and for these two women facing off against each other?
in that district, I think that this really is about national politics and issues far more than it is about local. The national attention on that race is really going to matter. The national money that flows in is going to matter, and it's one of the seats that Democrats need to pick up if they have any hope of getting a majority in Washington in November. And so I think that's going to crowd out any other kind of local issue that might come up.
Let's look at the 8th real quickly. You mentioned, Nolan, you feel that since taking a look at the turnout that Mike Bishop may be safe if you have more Republicans are going to be turning out.
gonna be
But
a
again,
tough
they're
race.
thinking that this could be a toss-up as well.
It's going to be a tough
for him.
race because you have folks, Democratic funders like Tom Steyer, going to spend millions on that race and the 11th race. Mike Bishop's got to do better at fundraising than he's been doing. I think the National Party will probably kick in a bunch of bucks. But you remember last time out, it was, Mike Bishop's in trouble. Mike Bishop won by 15.
He won by 17.
Points.
Wrote down 17 points last time.
So I don't know. I mean, that district still looks.
The math's too hard for Democrats in that district.
I think so. I think the focus will be on the 8th district, and the issue there, I agree with Steve. The 11th. The economy's great there. And people are not discontented.
Yeah.
It's all about Trump.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right, let's go ahead and take a look real quickly at the Senate race. We have John James, who was endorsed by Trump last week, now facing off against Debbie Stabenow. Will we see a debate there? Now, that would be an interesting debate to see.
You owe voters that. And, she can't get so comfortable and confident in her seat that she doesn't give the voters of this state a campaign. People deserve a campaign. You need to make your case for re-election, and part of that is to sit down with your opponent and debate.
And discuss the issues. We haven't seen a Senate debate since, I think, Debbie Stabenow debated Spence Abraham, right?
Way back.
Wow.
That's 98. Is that the year that happened? I can't remember.
I don't know.
No, wasn't that 2000?
Might have been 2000.
It was 2000.
Yeah. So it's been a long time, right?
Yeah.
And that's not okay. I think you rob voters of the chance to really compare the two candidates. I'm really interested in John James and his candidacy. I think this is a really interesting personal story, a guy with a lot of integrity. But again, his position on issues is a little strange given the fact that he's an African American and some of the things he supports actually hurt the African American community. But even worse is his alliance with Donald Trump and the enthusiastic alliance with Donald Trump.
You don't
understand
You don't think
that.
African Americans should be free to be conservative or to support the president?
I didn't say that. What I said was that some of the positions he holds are things that actually hurt the African American community.
But he
I don't
doesn't
understand
see it that way.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with being conservative.
He thinks they would help. My question is whether the Republicans have in John James a very attractive candidate. They say that they have what they say they want. A minority candidate, young candidate, war veteran, war hero,
business
as
owner.
attractive as you can get.
And he was able to raise over $3 million for the primary.
So will they put their money behind
Oh,
John
I think
James?
they will.
Yeah, we'll see.
Don't you?
Hey, you know what? We only have about 2 minutes left of the show, but I couldn't go without talking a little bit about the new T-shirt that everyone's going to be wearing. Would be Brooks Patterson versus everybody. He came out this week essentially saying, "Hey, Oakland Chamber, I want to meet with you because what they're doing downtown." And Jerry Anderson is the head of DTE and kind of this CEO gathering of CEOs to bring business into the city. That they're really going against. They're really going against Oakland County, and he what did he call them? They're self-appointed saviors. I mean, we've seen a lot of Brooks things. We've heard a lot of Brooks things.
The people we were talking about all live in Oakland County, by the way. He and Mark Hackle were on my radio show, 9:10 a.m. Superstation. Monday
That's a small plug. You just killed 30 seconds of my time, Nolan.
They were on there Tuesday, and that same theme, talking about the cannibalization, that we shouldn't be moving people from one place, leaving a whole one place to fill a place another.
But isn't that what happens in a region no matter what?
Oh, not when a region's growing. And that problem here is we're growing space and in offices and in residences, and we're not growing our total population. And so this means we're moving people around.
So much for regional cooperation,
But it's very hard for people in the city to hear that and not laugh at Brooks Patterson, who mastered the art of attracting people away from the city using the most cynical issues, race, economics, all these other things. This is somebody who symbolizes the cannibalization of the city, now complaining that things have worked the other way. I agree. We all need to figure out a way to grow the region so that no one is in that position. But it's a little bit of irony now to hear Brooks Patterson complaining about it.
But the break between the four regional leaders, I think, is very real. Brooks said on the show, I'm not going to sit down with people who've called me racist, called me names. Hackle said, I'm resentful too. They got a lot of work to do to patch that relationship.
And I think we got to make a list then of things that may not happen because of what this breakdown in relationship is. Well, we'll talk about that on coming episodes of the show.